Hello, everyone. It is Maya Zahira with Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and this is one of our Facebook Live classes that we have on our Psychic Protection Sanctuary Facebook group. If you're seeing this message right now, you're actually not watching live because it takes a minute for everybody to be notified on the Facebook group and to start joining. So, since you're watching now, I want to make sure that you have something interesting to watch. So this free workshop is all about spiritual bypassing and what it is and how it makes you more vulnerable to psychic attack. So as we're waiting for people to join the class, I'd like for you to grab a pen and paper, and I want you to do a little bit of brainstorming. So right now, I want you to just jot down what your personal spiritual practice is and any groups that you are currently participating in or that you have participated in the not so distant past. Okay, so just I think it'll be helpful for this workshop if you have at the top of your mind what your personal spiritual practice is. So go ahead and do that right now, okay? So you're going to be writing down what your personal spiritual practice is, if any, and any groups that you are a part of, or any classes that you've attended. And that can be anything from church to Bible study to yoga classes to classes, groups where you're discussing philosophy, or, I mean, it can be anything of a spiritual nature at all. What do you do for by yourself and in your community? Okay, so welcome everybody. We do have a couple people who are here. Hi Phyllis, you're cooking dinner and listening. What are you cooking? And those of you who are joining, I'd like for you to type your name and your city and state and your country, and then we'll get going. And also, I have another question for you all. Nikki is cooking dinner as well, simmering right now. Cool. Yeah, she's cooking. Okay, so actually what I want to let everybody know, I know with Facebook Lives it's like this kind of a slow start, but and Nikki's joining us from Butler, Missouri. Awesome. With Facebook Lives it's a bit of a slow start, like we're waiting for everybody to join, but this is awesome content that we're covering tonight, and I wanted to really encourage everybody to stay till the end. So I actually do have some free gifts that I'm giving away. And these, one of the free gifts is a brand new thing, and so, but you have to stay till the end to find out what it is. Phyllis is having steak tonight. Oh, okay, cool. Dinner, yeah. I already ate mine. Okay, so hopefully you've grabbed a pen and paper and you've jotted down a little bit, or if you're cooking, then just think about it. What is your spiritual practice? And what kinds of groups and activities are you involved with? Okay. And then, so just think about that. And then you can also type it, go ahead and type it, share that. And if you haven't already told us, if you haven't already introduced yourself, told us your city, state, and country, go ahead and do that right now. Okay, and then also I have a third thing that I'd like for you to do. I'd like for you to please type in, why are you here? Like, why did you feel drawn to log in and watch this class? And then also, hey Sahela, go ahead and grab a pen and paper, okay? If you're watching the replay anywhere on the internet, I want you to ask yourself the same question. Why did you feel drawn to click on this? Okay? I want you to be clear about where you're coming from. And those of you who are live, why are you here? Why did you feel drawn to be in this class? Were you drawn to this particular topic, or is there another reason? Okay, so I've already given you guys a handful of things to do, just waiting for everybody to type. I've never heard of spiritual bypassing, so I was curious. I've been looking forward to finding out, Nikki says. Awesome. I can't wait to teach you about what it is. It is really interesting, and I want more people to know about it. Zahira from Seattle, Washington, USA. Awesome. Hi, Sarah and Kai. Welcome. Tell us the city, state, and country that you're joining us from, and also why you felt drawn to join this class. Why are you here? And those of you who've just joined, make sure you have pen and paper. And Phyllis says, I've never heard of spiritual bypassing either. Ooh, I'm so glad that I decided to teach this topic. Hey, Kai. Super important. Oh, man. So important. And Kai's joining us from, I think it's a little small town, right? Bullhead City, Arizona. Desert town. Leslie says, hi, Maya. This is Leslie. I'm here in Kansas City, Missouri, and I felt drawn to hear more about what you do. I really enjoyed hearing the intuitive reading I had with you, and it was really interesting. Awesome. I really enjoyed doing that reading for you as well. Welcome, Anne. Good to see you here. Everybody who's just joining us, tell us your city, state, and country, and why you are here. Kai from Arizona says, here because I teach about spiritual bypass and body positivity in the New Age spirituality field. Yes, Kai and I have never met, but I feel like we're soul sisters, and we have these parallel paths that we're on, because she teaches a lot about spiritual bypassing and body positivity and illness shaming, and I teach the same thing, but in relation to psychic protection. Sarah says, Sarah and Matt from Lee Summit, Missouri. Awesome. And Kai says he teaches New Age illness shaming. Oh, I missed it. I can't see it now. Zahira, I want to learn about it and anything that makes me vulnerable. Plus, I love everything you teach. Awesome. Awesome. I love how the internet connects us together. When I'm doing Facebook Live on my phone, if I have to read really fast before it scrolls up. So, all right, everybody, give me a bunch of hearts, send some love my way, and send some love to interwebs right now. Give us some hearts, and we will get started with our class. So I want to make sure everybody who's just joined, make sure you have pen and paper. You are going to be interested in what we have to offer, the information here. Anne says, finally made it. Hi, I'm Anne from British Columbia, Canada, and I'm here to learn all I can, my family and others. Thanks for all the hearts, everybody. Awesome. Yay. Okay, so just a reminder that at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you about some free gifts. And there's 2 gifts actually. I'll tell you about them, but not what they are. So because this is such an important topic, I wanted to go ahead and give some free gifts. And the reason why I'm announcing them at the end is because if you get tired or something, I don't want you to log off. I want you to stay till the end. So there's 2 different gifts. There's one gift for those of you who are here live. If you stay till the end of this live video, then there's a free gift just for you. And it's a really good gift, I think. And then those of you who watch the replay, there's another gift that I'm giving that's also really good, and I just created it. It's a really good gift. And those of you who are watching live, you get to receive both gifts. So either way, you have to stay till the end to find out what they are. Okay. So let me go over a couple more logistics in case for the people who've just joined, because I didn't fully introduce myself. I did at the very beginning before everybody was on here. My name is Maya Zahira, and I am the founder of Psychic Protection Sanctuary. It is my life's work right now, and I am basically obsessed with gathering helpful information for people about psychic protection. One of the things that I have realized over the last 5 years, and it really hit me over the head about a year ago in a big way, was that there's a lot of misinformation out there about psychic protection, about just, there's so much misinformation. There's a lot of fluff out there, and there's a lot of dangerous information too. So I'm literally obsessed with obtaining correct information and teaching it and sharing it. And when I say I'm obsessed, it's like I'm constantly studying, reading, learning, listening to stuff constantly, and doing my own seeking as well, because I've had issues with psychic protection in the past as well as empath issues. So I know about these things firsthand. Anyway, enough about that. That's why we have the psychic protection group. I started it about, in mid 2016, and here we are on our Facebook Live class. And I've got a lot of notes here. I want to make sure I don't forget. So today's class is all about spiritual bypassing, what it is, and how it can make you more vulnerable to psychic protection issues, psychic attack, and so on. And a lot of you have mentioned so far in the comments as we introduced ourselves that you were not familiar with the term, and that makes me even more glad that we are covering this. It is really important to know what this is. Now, what I'm going to do in this class is I'm going to explain to you what spiritual bypassing is. I'm going to go through several facets of it and explain each facet and how each area of spiritual bypassing can make you vulnerable. So this is the type of class you probably will want a pen and paper for. So go ahead and grab that if you have not already. Now, before we get into all of that juicy stuff, I want to cover one more thing just so we get it out of the way, and then we can get into our really good stuff. Okay? So, and also in case anybody needs to leave early, but I hope you don't, because I want you to get the free gift at the end. All right. So, if you want to receive further support from me, there's a couple different ways that you can do that. So, if you have further questions about what can't talk about what we have covered in the video, or if you're having any psychic protection issues or empath issues, or you're wanting to learn how to develop your skills more, your intuitive or energy healing skills, then here are some ways that you can connect with me more. First of all, for those of you who are watching the replay over in other places like YouTube and stuff, I want you to find our free Facebook group where this class is happening live right now. And it is Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and you can just click to join it. And I hand select everybody who's allowed in. So if you have a compatible vibe for the group, and I do let 4 out of 5 people in. And the reason why I filter everybody in the group is that my intent is for the group to be, I want to help everybody, but my intent is for the group to be for people who are really wanting to work with the light and who are not dabbling with weird stuff and then trying to get out of trouble. Does that make sense? So we want people in the group who are of like mind, who are really wanting to work with the light and who are not trying to dabble with weird stuff and then calling on demons. I've actually met people who call on demons to do their bidding, and then they need help for clearing that out. And I have the greatest compassion for everybody out there, but the group, our Facebook group, isn't really for those folks. So if you are a light worker, whether you relate to that term or not, or if you just have a strong commitment to working with good, then that would be a good group for you. So you'll know how you can empower and protect yourself and have all of the correct information. And that's a free group. And then I also have some programs and classes on my website. And I'm just going to give you my website real quick, and then you can just go and look on there and click on what you feel drawn to. And I won't spend too much time going into all of that stuff. So my website is www.mayazahira.com. It's M as in Mary, A-Y-A, Z as in Zebra, AHIRA.com. And it's my name, mayazahira.com. There's one program called the Create program, and that's under classes, the classes tab. And that's a 12-month program where you get to learn. It's a certification program where you get to learn intuitive development, Reiki, energy healing, and psychic protection, and all sorts of other cool stuff. And it's very empowering. So if you're interested, you can click on that. Okay, let's get into spiritual bypassing, into the juicy stuff. So, spiritual bypassing. First, I'm going to show you this book, and I highly recommend that you get this book. This book, oh my gosh. If I had to give up most of my books, I would not give up this book. It's called, I don't know if you can see it, it's called Spiritual Bypassing, and it's by Robert Masters. And it says, Spiritual Bypassing, when spirituality disconnects us from what really matters. Okay. So I'm going to actually, there's just two little parts that I'm going to read to you. The rest of it, I promise I won't read straight from the book, the whole class. But this first paragraph really describes it. Spiritual bypassing, a term first coined by psychologist John Wellwood in 1984, is the use of spiritual practices and beliefs to avoid dealing with our painful feelings, unresolved wounds, and developmental needs. It is much more common than we might think, and in fact, it is so pervasive as to go largely unnoticed, except in its more obvious extremes. So, spiritual bypassing is any kind of spiritual practice or belief system that we might purposely or unconsciously use in order to avoid our own feelings or actually experiencing something real. Okay, so it's an avoidance mechanism, and essentially, and what the author says, and I agree with this, of course, essentially, spiritual bypassing, the whole reason why it's like an unconscious method that we use, the reason why we do it is to avoid pain. Okay? So it's like a defense mechanism that we use. So we think that we're doing this really good thing. Oh, I'm doing these spiritual practices, but and spiritual practices are good. Okay, I'm not saying that spiritual practices are bad. I have my own spiritual practice. We're specifically going to be talking about spiritual practices that are examples of spiritual bypassing. So all spiritual practices are not necessarily bad. They're actually, they can be very good and very healthy. We're going to be talking specifically about spiritual practices that are examples of bypassing your real emotions, your real human experience, etc., because on some level you're trying to avoid pain, emotional pain. Okay. Now, I became familiar with this term, let's see, I'm guessing 5 or 6, maybe 7 years ago. What was happening was there was a really major, difficult issue going on in our spiritual community where there were some energy healing practitioners who were misusing their power with their clients. And this was actually not just happening with one particular practitioner. So I'm not referring to just one practitioner, but there were a handful of different energy healing practitioners who were abusing their power. I'm going to just read Phyllis's comment. Phyllis says, wow, you're blowing me away here. You're talking about my whole life experience in church. Okay, yeah, could be. I can't wait to hear about it. So I was assisting with this issue. I'll get more specific so you know what I'm talking about, but without giving any identifying information. So there's a lot of times you probably have witnessed or experienced some examples of people in spiritual or leadership positions who have abused their power. And in this particular situation, the example was that there were male practitioners, energy healing practitioners, who were manipulating their female clients to have sexual relationships with them. Now, spiritual teachers and energy healers have sex too. That's a healthy thing. What's not healthy is that a practitioner was, and we're talking about several practitioners, but I'm just using the example. What's not right is when there's a practitioner who is consciously manipulating their client or clients because the practitioner is in a position of power. Okay, they need to uphold integrity and ethics, but instead what they were doing was they were manipulating their clients to engage in sexual relationships. And there were several. So it would be like one person would have like a whole bunch of different female clients and like 30 women coming forward saying that he manipulated them. And they were really confused and very, very, very upsetting and confusing. It would be like if you went to your doctor or your therapist or your priest or your minister or somebody like that who's in a position where you really trust them, and they abuse their power because they are in a position of power and they're responsible for upholding the professional ethics of that position. And again, I'm not saying that sexual relationships in and of themselves are bad. I think you know what I'm saying. This is like, a therapist would lose their license for manipulating their client who's coming to them because they're vulnerable. A therapist would lose their license for something like that. And we don't have the strict licensing in energy healing. And so anyway, there were a handful of different people that were causing issues. And so there was a group of people and I who were working to help resolve the issue, and we were working with some of the women to help them in their healing process because it was very devastating for them. And I can't even imagine, because it was devastating for me just trying to help them heal. It was really very heart-wrenching. But how this goes back to spiritual bypassing is that when I reached out to some of the different channels in my local spiritual community, what I got back was a whole bunch of reasons why they would not help with the issue. There were reasons like you need to just forgive. Just tell those women to forgive, get over it, and we need to just all forgive. We are all one, and we have forgiven these men. We don't believe that they're doing anything like that anymore. And Tanya is relating to this story. Yes, I'm sorry to hear that. And there were other comments that were made in the community that, well, we're not going to get involved with that, because we only want to talk about things that are positive, and this is negative, and we don't want to talk about anything that's negative. And I think that's all that I'll say about that. So I was like, of course, really upset. I wanted this issue to be resolved. The other people who were helping facilitate this were also really frustrated and upset, and we just weren't really getting the support that we needed. And it was around that time that I discovered this book by accident, Spiritual Bypassing. I was reading another book that happened to mention this, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get that book. I bought it immediately, and I read it, and I was like, now I understand, because I was so confused by the response that I was getting for a very real issue. It was like, let's all put our head in the sand and just like sing Kumbaya. And actually, I was told that I shouldn't work on helping with the issue. I should just work on healing myself. And that if I work on healing myself, all the issues in the community would go away. I was literally told that by a very, very well-known spiritual teacher in our community. Okay. So, anyway, finding this book was like a godsend, because it really put some meaning into the craziness that I was observing. Like, I kept thinking, this is so dysfunctional. This just doesn't make any sense, this response. But once I read this book, I realized, oh my gosh, okay, this makes total sense. I understand, like, there's so much spiritual bypassing going on. Now, I know I've talked about that story and about how like they were spiritual bypassing. But the thing is that we all spiritually bypass sometimes. We all do it. And so it's not like we're pointing our finger at other people or that people in that story that I told. We all do it sometimes. And that's why we're here, is to learn about what it is so we can have more self-awareness. And now, since this video is really the core of it is about psychic protection, we want to come back to that. So the idea of spiritual bypassing, there are some aspects of spiritual bypassing that if you are unconsciously practicing those habits, then it can make you more vulnerable to psychic attack. And so we're going to go through, got a list here. I'm following along with some of the things that the author talks about. And then I might leave out a few points because I just want to focus on the main ones that are going to relate to psychic protection issues that might make you more vulnerable to psychic protection issues. Okay. So the first aspect that we're going to talk about, so grab your pen and paper. First aspect of spiritual bypassing is being overly negative about negativity. So when I scroll through Facebook and I have a lot of lots of different kinds of friends on Facebook, but I see a lot of memes, a lot of pictures with sayings on them that say, there can be no negativity in my life, positive vibes only. And then, oh my gosh, I so want to say, let's be real. Like, having a real human experience means that sometimes there's negativity. And nobody's saying that we should be like negative 100% of the time. But if we are so negative about negativity, and we're only allowing ourselves to be positive, and we're never even allowed to talk about any hard issues, any difficult issues, or any negative emotions that are coming up, or let's say we're angry, or there's some negative issue that we need to work out. Okay, all of you who are watching live, get ready, get your finger ready. Okay, I want you to give me a thumbs up if you have ever had an experience where you were needing to vent or just confide in someone or get something off your chest, or you had some negative stuff going on, and I'm seeing a bunch of buttons pressed. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up or a heart if you've had people say, "Oh no, you can't talk about that because it's negative. You can only talk about positive." Yeah, Phyllis, you've had a lot of issues with that. I'm sorry, girl. Emiko says, hello, Maya Zahira. Your broadcast is intercepted by some energy, I guess. Oh, okay. Hopefully you can watch the replay later. Yeah. Okay. So, now let's have a little bit more participation. So, if someone is practicing positive vibes only, how do you think that could possibly make them vulnerable energetically? So let's just think about this a little bit. Instead of me just giving you the answer, if you're watching the replay, I want you to think about this too. Okay? So right now, those of you who are watching live, I want you to just brainstorm and type an answer for me. How do you think that not being allowed to face your negativity, not being allowed to express your negativity, only being allowed to talk about or feel or be positive, how do you think that could make you more vulnerable to psychic attack or to any kind of negative energetic issues? Okay, so go ahead and share now. While I'm waiting for you to share, just a reminder that those of you who stay till the end, we are going to have some free gifts. So stay till the end so you can find out what they are. Tanya says, it causes imbalances and doesn't allow you to express yourself. So, yes, so if you don't express yourself and you have negative stuff coming up, Sahela says, because you are holding on to negativity subconsciously. Right, so if you're just doing the positive vibes only, where's that negativity going? It's getting stuffed in. Okay, and when you stuff negativity in, then you become a match for negative energies. What you resist persists. So rather than letting it out and expressing it and letting it release, you're actually constricting and holding it in, whether you realize it or not. Nikki says, if you ignore negativity, it's just going to come back and bite you later. Yes, exactly. So what ends up happening is you end up stuffing it in, and then it gets stronger. And any energies that you stuff in also tend to get stored in your physical body and end up causing pain and disease, or contributing to pain and disease as well. And Kai says, eek, my internet is going all funky, trying to reboot. Okay. Hope you can join us again. All right, I'll wait for a moment, see if we have any other ideas, and then we'll go on to the next one. Phyllis says, yes. Okay, I'm going to start to go on to the next one on the list. This is another aspect of spiritual bypassing, and the author calls it blind compassion. Blind compassion. And this is another one that I'm going to read a tiny bit to you. Okay, where was it? I think it's this. Blind compassion is rooted in the belief that we are all doing the best that we can. When we are driven by blind compassion, we cut everyone far too much slack, making excuses for others' behavior, and making nice in situations that require a forceful no, an unmistakable voicing of displeasure, or a firm setting and maintaining of boundaries. These things can and often should be done out of love, but blind compassion keeps love too meek, sentenced to wearing a kind face. This is not the kindness of the Dalai Lama, which is rooted in courage, but rather a kindness rooted in fear. And not just the fear of confrontation, but also the fear of not coming across as good or spiritual enough person. Because it's supposed to be positive only. So blind compassion, and Nikki says, sounds like the marriage I just got out of. Blind compassion, the issue really boils down to a lack of discernment and a lack of boundaries. And there's also something that ties into this with blind compassion, and the author doesn't really word it this way, but this is how I word it. It's this teaching. There's a very popular spiritual teaching right now, which is that we are all one. And since we are all one and we all come from the divine, that means that, and we're all connected, then there's no need for boundaries. We are all connected. We're all one. And so we love one another, and we just don't set boundaries. Okay? And if everything's from God, then there's nothing to set boundaries against. And so blind compassion. Okay? So the blind compassion, so commonplace in a lot of spiritual circles and spiritual teachings. And I say this with respect. I respect all spiritual paths. I'm one of those people that I'm like, I can exist in the middle, and I love all spiritual paths. So I'm not bashing any particular group or anything. I do, however, I don't like spiritual bypassing practices. Don't like them. And it's so common in spiritual communities, and I notice it a lot in the New Age community. It's this blind compassion. And it happened in that situation, that story that I shared a little while ago about a small group of people trying to speak up about the misuse of power. And one of the most common responses that we got was that of blind compassion, of that you need to have compassion for these men. And it was so funny. I mean, it's funny, not funny, haha, but funny, horrible funny, that there was so much compassion being shown to the men and none for the women, none for the people who were victims of this situation. So it was blind compassion, and it was misdirected compassion as well. And so that happens so often. Now, how does this tie in? How does blind compassion, lack of discernment, the idea that we are all one and we don't need boundaries, how is that going to possibly cause psychic protection issues? Time to brainstorm again. Okay, so start typing. How would that, and we're talking about with people or with entities, because I see it all the time when I'm talking to people in different pockets of the spiritual community. I hear this blind compassion, spiritual bypassing coming up a lot when they're talking about spirits that they're connecting with or spiritual beings that they're connecting with. So how do you think that would show up? This lack of boundaries, lack of discernment, blind compassion, we are all one, we are all love. Go ahead and type your answers now. How would that possibly cause some psychic protection issues? And if you're watching the replay, I want you to really think about this right now. And think about, have you ever done this? Okay, Zahira says, with no boundaries, we can receive all kinds of negative energy. Right. And yes, Lauren, I can give an example. Let's see if there's any other answers that come through. So I gave the example of blind compassion where, actually, hang on a second. Tanya says, if you get a psychic vampire on you, you need to have more compassion. Oh, crap. Let's see, can I go? Oh, yeah, I can. You need to have more compassion for yourself than the hurtful person, or you're going to have some serious problems. Right. So if you have a person in your life who hooks in and sucks your energy away, it is not compassionate to them to let them keep doing it. It's an act of love to set a boundary. So a blind compassion says we're supposed to just be compassionate, just not set boundaries. But it's actually more compassionate and more loving to set a boundary. And Nikki says, with no boundaries and that kind of blind compassion, you're opening yourself up to take in any kind of energy from anyone, including negative energies, like Zahira said. Okay, and Lauren says, thank you. Yeah, so for example, I gave the example of the story with the energy healers that were praying. They were literally preying on their clients. It wasn't just that they were engaging in sexual relationships, but they were hooking in energy cords and manipulating them energetically because they knew how, since they were trained to work with energy. And so the community responded with blind compassion that we should just forgive those people, and we believe that they won't do it again. Well, they did keep doing it, but that's a whole other thing. And I'll give you a spiritual example in just a moment. Phyllis says it allows the negativity, bad behavior to spread to others, and you can also be victimized. Yes. Emiko says law, sexual chastity has to be kept, just like we should not kill others in psychic field. Both are bad karma. Yeah, I'm not sure if I got all of that, but yes, we need to take ethical actions towards others for sure. So, the law of sexual chastity. Yes, right. Well, if you're working with clients, for sure, definitely have to maintain energetic and personal integrity. Okay, so I'll give a spiritual example of blind compassion. Let's say someone is meditating, or they're wanting to do some channeling. So they open themselves up, and some kind of being comes in that they're going to work with, or some kind of being, spiritual being comes in, and because the person has been taught through their spiritual circles to have blind compassion, by default, they are not even thinking about being discerning. They're just open and love, and we are all one. So the being that comes in ends up being not of the light. It ends up being a dark being. And actually what happens very often is that dark beings that are imposters, that are pretending to be of the light, end up coming and working through these people who are channeling. So false light. A lot of false light beings end up working with people who are channeling, and with even just some discernment. Most people would be able to identify that it's false light that's coming in, that it's an imposter and not ascended master so-and-so. But because they're practicing blind compassion, we are all one, and our hearts are all connected. And by the way, I love love. I'm not against love and compassion. I'm a very compassionate person. I cry when I see animals and children and people hurting. So compassion isn't wrong. It's that blind compassion. So there's so many people who are channeling. Channeling is very popular now. I'm not anti-channeling, but because of this very popular blind compassion, lack of discernment kind of thing, that's part of the spiritual bypassing epidemic. There's so many people who just are not discerning with the energies that they're bringing in for their channeling, and what they end up getting is false light entities instead of real beings from the divine that are of light. So that's so common. You would be shocked if you knew how common it was. Okay, are we ready for the next one? Give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up if you are ready for the next one. Let me look at my notes here. What does this say? Oh, I see. I couldn't read my notes. Oh my gosh. That's so funny. Okay, we're ready for the next one. Okay, the next aspect of spiritual bypassing is healthy and unhealthy transcendence. So healthy transcendence is a good thing. The author is talking about unhealthy transcendence. So transcendence is the idea that we want to only engage in spiritual pursuits because that is a higher vibration, and anything that's connected with human living, with things of the flesh, It's all lower vibration and it's evil and it's bad and only spiritual things are good. And give me a thumbs up if you've run into that in any of your spiritual experiences or church experiences. Okay? So what ends up happening when people are working towards unhealthy transcendence, whether they're going and getting those messages at church where they're being taught that like anything of the flesh is evil, or if they're engaging in hours and hours and hours of meditation where they're out, literally their spirit is like outside of their body, up above their crown chakra, there's problems with that. Okay, so what happens when you're taught or you're practicing having your awareness in spirit all the time, and again, I'm not anti-spirit, I believe in a balance, but before I tell you the answer, what kinds of issues do you think, psychic protection issues, do you think that you might encounter if you, I thought I heard someone coming in the door, it's my cat, what kinds of psychic protection issues would you encounter if you or a person was taking part in unhealthy transcendence? Okay, and I know like back, so go ahead and type the answer. I know back before 2012, everybody was all like the word transcendence, people were talking about that all the time. Like we're gonna move out of 3D and we're gonna be all in spiritual and blah blah blah. Well, that was, that's come and gone. We're still in physical bodies. Tanya says another imbalance plus not taking good care of yourself. Yeah. Okay. Any other answers? How I would put it, like really straightforward, is if you're in transcendence zone, I call that la la land, like you're up in spiritual la la land, your energy is up here, and so you're not home. You're not home in your body. You're out here in la la land or astral traveling or whatever, and if you're not home, then it's very easy for other energies or entities to come in and inhabit. Okay? That's just the truth. Now here I will say I'm not anti-astral travel or anti-spirituality or anti-spiritual practice or transcendence, and I love meditation, but you have to also stay embodied. You have to be at home to make sure there's not crazy stuff happening in your aura and in your body. Emiko says, I believe that we should have a nice family and solid support group around us for healthy earthly life. Yes. So if you are not home in your physical body and in your being, if you're not embodying yourself, other stuff will come in and set up camp. That is just what happens. So whether it's the spiritual bypassing practice of unhealthy transcendence or another kind of opposite or parallel aspect of that would be, because like unhealthy transcendence is about being like kind of unconscious in your humanity and living up in the spiritual. A parallel to that would be being unconscious because you're just like playing video games and scrolling on Facebook all the time and watching TV for like 8 hours a day or whatever. That's another form of being unconscious and not really being present in your body. Okay. So have there been any times, I'm hearing thunder outside, I think there's some rain coming. Have there been times when you have unknowingly reached towards unhealthy transcendence because your spiritual teachers were setting that example for you and not helping you to be fully embodied? That's really, really common. And it's just like we don't even realize that we're being taught that or that we're practicing it because it seems like it's good, it seems beautiful, it seems lovely. But you can see how it would be out of balance. right? Okay, let me know if you have any questions on that one. Another aspect of spiritual bypassing would be spiritual shortcuts. Spiritual shortcuts, the author talks about how, so many of us in the spiritual world, we want to go to like a 2-hour workshop and instantaneously be certified in XYZ, or like we just want to be able to do this little amount of work, this like just one little short thing, and then we're there, like we're totally spiritually evolved now because we've done this like one thing. And it's like the McDonald's drive-through version of spirituality. So there's a lot of spiritual shortcuts out there. I can't think of any specific examples, but I just know I've seen so many examples of like, become a Reiki master in 1 hour, like things like that drive me crazy. Like, becoming a Reiki master is a huge responsibility, and it takes many months, if not years, of study. And and so people are wanting it like McDonald's drive-through version. So, okay, this answer might be a little bit trickier. I have some thoughts in mind, but if you were a person who was taking all sorts of spiritual shortcuts, how do you think that might make you more vulnerable to psychic protection issues? So go ahead and share now. And as you're typing, I'll go ahead and share what came to mind as I was thinking about what my answer would be. If someone was really into taking shortcuts in their spiritual training and their spiritual practice, let's say they're trying to study to become a healer. If they're taking all sorts of shortcuts, then they're not going to be fully educated in everything they need to know about their field. And then actually, right, Sarah is saying, by not mastering their skills. So if they haven't mastered their skills, then they can end up having issues with their clients. Let me read what Nikki says. If you're taking a shortcut, you're not truly being perceptive to the energies you are attracting or maybe even creating. Yes. Zahira says, because you haven't learned all the information that you need. Yes. I'm actually thinking of one person that I know who I don't ever give identifying information, but this quote person I noticed was going through the spiritual shortcuts and was trying to take like every quickie workshop as fast as they could. And then when they got into their professional practice, what I observed was that they were hooking energy cords into their clients. And even when I pointed it out to them, they didn't care because they knew they could get away with it because they were not a person of integrity. But if they had taken longer to work with a mentor and to not try to do the quickie version, then and they had gotten proper training, then possibly their path may have been different. Okay, we can get ourselves into psychic protection emergencies also if we're not aware enough, and we've just kind of like jumped to some kind of spiritual practice that's way above what we're ready for. We can end up encountering psychic protection issues as well. Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Okay. So there's a couple that I left out from what he talks about in the book, but you can get the book yourself. There's one more that I'm going to cover that's really important. Another facet of spiritual bypassing is spiritual gullibility. And this is a practice that's so common in spiritual circles. And it's that, people go to an event, or they're part of a community or a class, or they're following a teacher or whatever. And it's so common that people will just blindly follow whoever's in charge, whether it's the uh, studio owner, the spiritual teacher, whoever it is. They just blindly follow that person without questioning anything. And by the way, you can question anything that I teach you. Like, I'll be so happy if you do. I want you to question stuff. But there's so much not questioning. It's just blindly following. Now, this is a really easy one. Like, how do you think this could cause some potential psychic protection issues? Go ahead and share right now. How do you think this could cause some issues? And from the last question, Emiko says if they have gone through spiritual shortcuts, they have only partial information. Wholeness of healing is not existed. Yeah. So how do you think spiritual gullibility can make you more vulnerable? And think about spiritual gullibility with your spiritual teachers, your leaders, but also with spiritual beings. This I see a lot. So much spiritual gullibility where people will have a spiritual being connect with them, appear to them, or connect with them in some way, shape, or form, and they just immediately assume that, oh wow, I need to follow what this thing is telling me to do, without using discernment. And again, they end up having false light beings that are connecting with them, because false light beings can tell a mile away if someone is spiritually gullible, if they just believe everything. So they love to work with that vulnerability. They definitely do. Okay, Tanya says, if you have someone teaching that's unethical, that's a really big issue for the people blindly following. Yes, I was just thinking about this morning, that there's someone that I know who is, I don't feel is very ethical and is working from ego. And it actually has caused a lot of problems for their students, because there's all these entanglements, and then some of the students have been psychically attacked by the spiritual teacher, and that's just a mess. It's just a real mess. So it is a real problem for the people who are blindly following. Nikki says, when you blindly follow in line and don't ask questions, you could call up energies that aren't ready for, or that you're not ready for, or that you're not expecting. Yes. Zahira says, following someone with bad integrity could get a person in trouble and have negative energy come in. And Phyllis says, wow. Yeah. I say wow to all of it too, for sure. Okay, Amiko says, it had happened to me that I followed a false teacher. Even I was quite careful. Yeah. Yeah, even those who are using discernment can sometimes be fooled, because the false light is pretty tricky. It really is. Let me think if there's anything else that I want to cover before we get into our free gifts, because I promised those to you at the end. I think we've covered everything. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we've covered? And as I'm waiting for questions, remember that we all spiritually bypass now and then. And so it's not that we need to point our finger at other people, but it is good to recognize it and to go, ooh, that's not for me. Nope, not for me. It's also, I don't know about you guys, but when other people are practicing it or preaching spiritual bypassing, for me in the past, I'd be like, oh my gosh, what? That's so dysfunctional. And I would get confused, like, why is that okay? Why are they teaching that? And once there was a name for it, once I had a way to conceptualize it, like, oh, what's happening over there is spiritual bypassing. Okay, now I understand, like, and this author is a psychologist, okay? So it's like, okay, yes, yes, it is dysfunctional, and yes, it's a good practice to not do spiritual bypassing types of practices. So, has anybody been able to identify any ways that they may have been spiritually bypassing in the past, or that people were glomming a bunch of spiritual bypassing onto you? Can you think of any either way? Have there been times when you've used unhealthy transcendence because you were not wanting to be present because it was too uncomfortable? Or have you practiced blind compassion where you were immediately like trying to have compassion for somebody who did something horrible instead of standing up and saying something or setting a boundary? Okay. Or, I know in the past, before my eyes really opened, there was a period of time where, I don't know, I know like 10 or so years ago, maybe a little bit longer, I was really negative about negativity. The movie The Secret and the law of attraction, and what you speak about is what you draw to you. So there was one friend that I would just be like, don't talk about negative things. It's like, oh my God, I used to totally do that. Don't talk about negative things. You can only talk about positive things. And like, oh man. But I went to a women's circle. Gosh, I think it was about 10 years ago. And when I showed up, I was feeling really stressed out about some different things in my life. And so when we went around the circle and shared what was going on with us, it was my turn, and I went ahead and shared how I was feeling. And I said, I feel really scared, and things have been really hard. I think I made a mistake by moving to this new place. It's horrible, da da da. And the teacher said, cancel. She said that to me. Cancel what you just said. You're saying negative things, and if you want to draw positive to you, you need to stop talking about negative things, and you need to start talking about positive. And that was one of the first experiences that I had where I started to really open my eyes and realize I didn't know about the term spiritual bypassing yet, but I started to have some experiences out in the spiritual community where I was like, WTF, that's not right. Like, if we're having a bad day, we should be able to share it, especially at a circle where we're there to support each other. So that cancel thing was very popular. A lot of people in spiritual circles used to, if you said anything negative, they would say, cancel. Isn't that crazy? Okay. Let's see, we've got some comments. Nikki says, I joked about blind compassion and my marriage, but it is true. I followed him blindly and opened myself up to him and his spiritual practices, and he took complete advantage, and I've been under, can I get the rest of it? Yes. I've been under psychic attack from him since I left, so I definitely relate to this. Well, I'm sorry that happened. Oops, what just happened? There we go. Sorry that happened, Nikki, and I am glad this information is useful to you. Leslie says, I feel that when my parents dragged me to church as a kid is an example of spiritual gullibility. It was like following the leader without questioning. Yeah, there's a lot of that in standard religions nowadays. And again, I'm not against standard religions, but this whole idea that you're supposed to follow without questioning. I was raised Catholic, and oh my gosh, I used to drive my dad crazy because I was a questioner. I asked all these questions all the time, and he would be like pulling his hair out, like, you're not supposed to question, you're just supposed to believe what the Catholic Catechism says, and it says blah, 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 blah. And I would say, but why? Why is that true? Why do we have to do this? Why do we have to believe that? I am all for questioning. I think it's a good thing. And let's pull it back to spiritual protection again. It's very popular to work with spirit guides and angels and other beings, calling them to you, whether you're channeling or just meditating and working with them. Very popular these days, and I love that. I think it's good, but I do think there's not enough discernment with it, and I think people are very gullible and they just trust whatever shows up for them. And so I think that if you have a spirit guide or an angel who is truly of the light and truly loves you and wants the best for you, they will not mind at all if you question them, if you question their integrity and question their source and question where they are from and who they're working with. They're actually going to be glad that you're doing that you're questioning them and asking for validation that they are of the light and of love and are not false light or dark entities. Those who are dark energies, dark entities, including those who are of false light, are going to get pissed off, angry, defensive, full of ego if you question their integrity and whether they are of the light. Okay, so if you're working with your spirit guides or any energies that you're channeling, if they have a negative response by you asking them to validate who they are, then I guarantee you they are not of the light, of the true light. And I would say also the same is true for human teachers, spiritual teachers, healers, etc., that you may be working with. If you start to ask them questions to validate exactly what kind of energies they are working with, and they get super defensive and lash out and angry, that is a sign that they are not of the level, at the very least, they are not of the level that you want to be working with. At the very least, they're working from ego, or, and we all have some ego sometimes, I get it, but if they're responding like that, they're working from way too much rooted in ego. And then also it could be an indicator that they are not working with the light, but they're working with other kinds of energies that you don't want to have anything to do with. So keep that in mind. Okay, so let's go back to the book, Spiritual Bypassing. I highly recommend that you get this book. Every spiritual seeker should have this book. I highly recommend it. And you can get it on Amazon. I don't know how much it is, but now for the free gifts. All right, I'm going to give you my website again, in case you want to go there and find out how you can receive further support, like through my Create program, which is the 12-month program for Reiki, energy healing, intuitive development, and spiritual boundaries, and so much more. And some of my empath survival kit and psychic protection emergency kit, and other really useful tools for you to use. And as I said at the very beginning, I'm super obsessed about helping people with these kinds of issues. I've been through some really major issues, and I don't want other people to have to go through it all alone. So I am constantly working like crazy to get things created that can help people. So that's what I have on my website. And that's www.mayazahira.com, M as in Mary, A-Y-A, Z as in Zebra, A-H-I-R-A.com. And now let's talk about the gifts after we read Phyllis's comment. If a teacher has a problem with me questioning or doesn't encourage me to study for myself and come up with my own conclusions, I know that they're not legit. Phyllis, I just got to say, well, I'm pausing for a minute because I hope this doesn't sound weird, but I think that's why we are working together. I mean, energies, the right energies attract, and that's how anybody ends up with any particular teacher, is because they're a match, and if they're not a match, then they don't go to that teacher, they go to another teacher. So I'm really glad that that we found each other. I'm really glad that we found each other. Okay, free gifts. We've got 2 free gifts. Those of you who attended live, and I did see that some of you got bumped off. So if you see this later and you were on live, because I saw all of your names, I know if you were on here for the live class. If you would email me or PM me and send me your email, I will send you the video, and it's pretty long. I think it's an hour and a half or something. It's a video, the 5 common myths about psychic protection. And that video is full of important knowledge. There's a lot of different, there's a lot of misinformation out there about psychic protection and how it works. And I demystify all of it, and I tell you the truth so you can get started on the right path. So actually that video is no longer available for the public. It is going to be on sale on my website in a week or so, but I will give that to you as a free gift. Okay, so send me a private message with your email. And then anybody who's watching the replay, if you want to private message me or get a hold of me however you can email me on my website, www.mayazahira.com, MAYAZAHIRA.com, and ask for the free quiz. And there's a quiz that I just created. Are you under psychic attack? It's a very helpful quiz. I've got a big, huge, long list of all sorts of different indicators and symptoms of psychic attack, and some of them you may not even have thought of. And so it's a very comprehensive list, and you'll be able to evaluate right now if you are under attack, and you can hang on to the quiz so that if there's any time in the future where you might possibly have some issues, you'll be able to use that quiz to evaluate whether you're having an issue or not and what you need to do about it. Okay, well, we are all done. Everybody give me a high five. Type in some hearts and thumbs up. Party! If you're watching this replay somewhere like YouTube or wherever, I hope that you will click on over to Facebook and find our free Facebook group, which is Psychic Protection Sanctuary. You can just type that into the search bar and find us on there. So that's the free group. And we have a free Facebook Live class about every other week on there. And that's what this is here. And then if you're interested in more, there's paid programs and even like little downloadable courses that are really inexpensive that are on my course as well. So you can get started that way. All right, everybody, it was great connecting with all of you, and as usual, we have Facebook Live classes every first and third Monday. I don't know what our next topic will be. I have to think about that a little bit, but thanks for all the hearts, everybody. But send me your requests. I love getting requests, and I can make sure to cover I could probably cover whatever you request. Okay, so I will see you next time. Our class is always at 6 p.m. Central, first and third Mondays on the Psychic Protection Facebook group. Everybody have a great week, and see you next time. Bye. I love the cat, Tanya. That's really cute.